Vivid. Welcome at another episode of Leadership Lyrics. This is Yoga van Dam, and today I've got something really special for you. I actually have met this guest, Amir Ghannad, from the VSAI recently. He's an international speaker, keynote speaker, organizational consultant, and the founder of the Ghannad Group. In 2015 is when he founded this company. He offers speaking and consultant services to guide leaders in creating extraordinary cultures that really delivers breakthrough results and unprecedented fulfillment. Literally for 31 years, he's led multinational teams in manufacturing and supply chain roles in the US, Asia, Europe, with companies such as Procter and Gamble. He's really passionate about equipping clients to discover the transformative leader within and embrace and fulfill their accountability for creating extraordinary workplace cultures. Really, my type of a person. Amir's book, The Transformative Leader, has been shipped to 30 countries, and him and his wife, Connie, reside in Portugal, serving clients across multiple regions for in person and online engagements. Such an honor to have you here, Amir.
Absolute pleasure to be here.
You said to me that before you started the Ghannad Group, you were actually an engineer.
Yeah.
And you were noticing that there were possibly people and culture issues, even as an engineer. And
Yes.
within 18 months, you said that you were actually able to turn a struggling plant around. What was the situation like, and what was some of your thinking going into that transformation?
Let me provide a bit of context about my background. So I have a master's degree in mechanical engineering, and I started with Procter and Gamble in a technical role. But a few months into my career, just out of school, before I read any leadership books or anything, I realized that the key is not for me to be the mastermind of telling everybody what to do technically and all of that, but to be there and support the organization and make sure that I bring out the best in people. Because I saw throughout my career that we had people who had expertise, but they were conditioned to be told what to do and things like that, and they didn't bring their best self to work. So fast forward about 19 years into my career, after I'd worked in Thailand, worked in Germany, various types of roles, throughout all of that time, even though I stayed in a manufacturing and supply chain career, the entire time I was leading turnarounds and things like that, using my passion for people and cultures. I was always looking at the organization through those lenses. And about
Mm.
19 years into my career, I was the plant manager. I got this job as a plant manager of a plant that essentially was producing everything they needed to produce within 3 days out of the week. So all the flaws and everything was being swept under the rug and wasn't showing up. Shortly after I got there, we were acquired by a private equity firm. Volume went up, complexity went up, and I started uncovering a lot of those kinds of things that were going on. So anyway, we found ourselves to be the worst plant in the company.
That's
And
terrible.
yes, yes. The only thing worse than our results was our culture, was our morale. So it was a very unhealthy situation. No trust in leadership, working in silos, just nobody collaborating or anything like that. What we came to was like, look, the key here is to get the organization, to get the people empowered, and making sure that all of these experts that we have throughout the organization are not just waiting to be told by one guy, me, what to do, because I was certainly not smart enough. So I started really holding a lot of sessions and conversations and coaching. But what really hit home was that I discovered during that process that while I was trying to transform them, I got transformed myself. And I remember to the day that I realized that every problem that we had in that plant fell into one of three categories. Either I created it, or I had been contributing to it, or at the very least, I'd been tolerating it. Because again, it wasn't like, oh, I went in and I had everything figured out and then I made some things happen. No, I had to go through that process of realizing that if it's to be, it's up to me. So I had to go through that process. And I believe that is the key for leaders to not just try to fix other people, but to recognize how they get in their own way. And once I had that realization, then I coached others to truly step up and accept responsibility for what it is that they can do differently. So we set a vision. There was a lot of things that we did. We set a very challenging vision for ourselves, and we managed to achieve it, and we became the best in the company, and we set records on several results across the industry.
Wow. So I'm picking up various things here, but you're saying that they were result issues, but they were also culture and morale issues. And when you started actually problem solving, but also working on yourself and helping the people, then the morale also started shifting. So a lot of people work needed to happen to actually shift the results. And I think that's something you write about a lot, actually saying that when you're actually doing this culture work, transformation work, that it can actually have an impact on profits, bottom line.
Absolutely. Absolutely. When you think about it, every result that an organization produces is the direct outcome of their culture. So, because the results are there as a result of something that somebody did or did not do. And if you take a look at the culmination of those behaviors, they form your culture. Are people solving problems to root cause, or are they band-aiding them? Are they just staying in their own silo and trying to do this and throw the problem across the wall? Or do they collaborate and find multifunctional solutions? And so when you really think about that, the key to changing the results is to focus on the culture and the behaviors. And there are a couple of levers that actually drive that change in culture. One is your systems, processes, all of those kinds of things that are necessary because they either entice people to behave one way or another. And the other bucket is leadership capability at all
Mm.
levels of the organization, no matter where the people are. So we went to work on all of those things. And it also didn't hurt that we truly cared about people. And we really went to work to help not just the people in the plant, but all of us to get better at life, not just at work. So that really created a lot of trust. And that just took us over the top.
I'm loving that. The processes and the leadership capability. And did you get to a point where you were actually even developing processes for the leaders to lead? Like, for instance, feedback processes or coaching frameworks or performance
Absolutely.
management or succession planning or induction programs, like bleed into each other, right?
Yes, absolutely. And because the thing is, oftentimes when we think about a process, say in a manufacturing plant, you have materials coming in, they go through these processes, and they out the other end comes some product of good quality, bad quality, high cost, low cost, that sort of thing. But really, what's going on in an organization is a whole lot of complex processes that really have to do with the people, because and really open system theory, if you think about it, inside what's going on is that you have these inputs, and then inside there's three things that are going on at the same time. It's what's going on with each individual core process. Each person, they show up, they have aspirations, they have hopes, they have dreams, they have fears, whatever else. What is going on with the individual? Then the other thing is the production core process, which is the work that has to be done. But in the middle there, that what connects these two is the social core process, which means, yeah, we as individuals are here to do the work to make things happen. But this process in the middle, how do we interact? How we support each other? How do we give each other feedback? These are the kinds of things that a lot of leaders don't really get trained on. Not just training in the sense of picking up tools and skills, but they really have not embraced the mindset, most importantly. So we went to work on really equipping people with the right mindset, and designing processes so that we can execute the work of giving feedback and empowering each other and supporting one another, all of those things that you
Mm.
said, with a high level of integrity, like that we would do what we said we were going to do. So you have to have the mindset and the skills, but you also have to have the right tools to make it happen.
Have you ever had any form of gamification as part of this? Why I'm asking this, if I can share a quick story, I was part of this
Please.
massive culture project with this one company in South Africa, and it was I don't want to say their name, but they're in the finance space, and it was this massive project over years, but specifically in the year where there were a lot of face-to-face interventions, when we were working on communication or the way they're going to be working with each other, they then got certain badges and projects to do. So the badges was quite cute. The one was a head badge where I would notice that I like the way that you're thinking. So I would actually send HR and you an email with the badge. I want to reward Amir with the badge because he had such great insights in this podcast interview, specifically about creating processes on culture. Now they are actually seeing this as a badge that someone's rewarding you. And then there was a heart badge. I liked how you made me feel. And then there was a hand badge in terms of I liked what you did, the behavior you actually did. And this sounds so stupid. This is not financial or anything like that. But ultimately, all of the different teams were in these squads. So they had to do different projects. There were these budgets, different things. And there was an incentive. So one of the teams actually won a major award, and I think money was donated to charities that they chose to do. And then they had a fun day out and whatever. But because there was this competitive nature, it actually spurred people on to actually have fun of it. But the badges was quite fun. I actually saw someone in one of the sessions, because it was virtual and online, saying, I'm in finance. And the one guy was in IT, and he said, no one has ever made me feel as good as this, where I got a badge from HR saying that this department really appreciates me because I was doing my best to make sure that the payments went through in time and the sales team were able to reach their results because finance helped them. And that person that wasn't in a client facing, that wasn't outward but inward focus in the business, suddenly was rewarded. And that had a huge impact. So I just saw the impact of like gamification, smaller projects, and challenges as a way of further igniting it. Because what you're speaking about is really the design, having all of that down. So they pulled the voices of all of the employees and then pulled that through and put that together into their purpose statement, their culture, their values, pulling that through into behavior. So it was nice. It wasn't just done with top management, it was actually done with everyone. And then they had to, get down into the final things because there were so many inputs. And I actually
Yes.
found that there was more buy in when more people were involved than just a few people. And I think you're right about that. From a leadership point of view, on what level should culture be implemented? I think you're right about the front line, or is it top down, or is it bottom up? Where should leadership development start?
Yeah, let me just say a few words about gamification because I'm a
Yes.
believer in that. I think you made a point that I totally want to underscore, in that it's not always about some monetary gain or anything like that, even though we did a ton of gamification and it was just really appreciated by people to be recognized and acknowledged by their peers. At one point, we were doing what we called recognition bucks. So we would
Ah,
print out these bucks that you could give to peers. You recognize one of your peers, and then you had all this money and you could buy certain things, the gifts that we
almost
had
like
available.
carnival tickets.
But for the most part, it wasn't about them getting anything physical or any kind of a gift, but it was about a status symbol, that we had
Mm.
all of these boards and all these recognitions, and our vision was to be the showcase of excellence. I'd go around and stamp some of these results on the boards with my stamp of this is showcase of excellence material. Or we had really teams that would acknowledge each other in meetings or on their boards and things like that. So we had a ton of gamification going on, and it really did make a huge difference for us.
I think the more fun we can make work, and what I've seen when I do leadership or team alignment work, the more games you play, the more learning happens. And
Yes,
because people forget that it's
yes,
work,
yes,
they don't
that's right.
find it to be boring. So the
Yeah,
moment you can hack it to make it fun or make it a tournament or something like that. And I love the fact that you actually had a stamp. That sounds so amazing.
that's
If
right.
you have a photo of that, I would love to see that.
One other thing I just want to tell you relative to gamification, our plant went for about 4 years without having any injuries. Now, this is a time when our competitors, our peers, were getting about 6 or 7 people hurt out of every 100 people every year. And we went for about 4 years. And I was concerned that if somebody got hurt, that people were like, oh man, now we're messed up and all that. So what we did was we created this Hall of Fame kind of board. And we literally had people who had gone 25 years, 30 years without an injury. So we had all of this that we said, look, we don't want anybody to get hurt. But even if somebody does get hurt, we haven't, all is not lost. And so that the status of being on that board and continuing to go up on that board became a thing for us. And so that was another thing.
Sure.
But let me go back to your question. Should leadership development start at the top or at the front lines? Essentially, what I have always heard from people, I speak around the world, and people always ask me, the most popular question they ask me after my talk is, they look around, they're like, hey, you know what? I totally get what you're saying, but my boss, I wish he was here because they need this and all that. So I totally get that if leadership at the top is totally aligned with these principles of transformative leadership and that sort of thing, things go a lot more smoothly. But I've also seen grassroots movements that have taken shape. In our case, for instance, we didn't have a lot of support from outside of the plant because I was constantly getting beat up for not doing things the way that my bosses felt like needed to be done and that sort of thing. But we started something, and then I remember one day my boss told me, he said, I still don't know how you did that, but I want that everywhere else. So you can start a grassroots movement and get it to spread out. But my ideal situation is that I generally start working with the top leadership and make sure that they understand the concepts and the ideas, and they're beginning to role model that, and then simultaneously begin to work with other layers within the organization so that there's a lot of coaching going on and they're feeding off of each other. So this parallel approach I've found to be extremely helpful and very productive in that it creates synergy across various levels of the organization.
And it's more leaders are then modeling the behavior that they want others to have. So it's not just the theory that was developed, they are actually demonstrating it themselves. So you
Yes.
spoke very early on, you spoke about self-awareness, that leaders actually need to look inside. And I think
Yes.
one of the areas that you also write about in your book is about saboteurs. I think that is very interesting. What are saboteurs, and can you share something with us?
Sure. So when I start an engagement with my clients, I generally start with what I call personal transformation, or the topic is basically discover the transformative leader within. And this is because we generally are pretty good at saying, okay, it's those people's fault, whether it's a leader saying, oh, yeah, those people on the line are not taking initiative, or these people on the line saying, oh, these people are not smart enough. We always do this, but in this session, there's like a 4 hour session that I've done countless times in
Yeah.
person and virtually, where you discover the transformative leader within, where you go from this to this, just basically pointing to yourself instead of pointing out there. And so there are these 7 hidden saboteurs that really cause you to see how you can be and show up as a transformative leader that you are. The first one, for example,
Hmm.
is Are you focusing on transformation or just change? Because when you think about it, our normal mode of operation is to play whack-a-mole with our problems, right? This one comes up and whack, that one comes up, we whack. But that's just dealing with whatever's right in front of us. But focusing on transformation says, yes, I know I got to deal with all of this, but I'm going to do it in the context of creating something extraordinary, not just getting through the day. So oftentimes we sabotage ourselves by not really taking a moment to see where we're going. We're clear on what we don't want, but we're not clear on what we want. And if the leader is not clear, then certainly other people are not going to be clear. They're just basically doing whatever they need to do to get through the day. So that is the first hidden saboteur. Stop focusing on only change. Of course, we don't have the luxury of saying, I don't have time to deal with the problems of today because I'm a visionary. Now, I'm not suggesting that. I am suggesting that you deal with what you have to deal with, but at the same time, get real clear about what are you trying to transform. The second thing is that believe that we are destined to thrive, but we're not really wired to thrive. We're wired to survive, right? We're essentially focusing on external things that are holding us back from achieving that vision. It's my boss, or I don't have enough resources, I don't have enough time, why don't these people do this and that and the other? So the second hidden saboteur is that we don't see that we are the bottleneck. Like the moment you accept responsibility, like I did, I said, okay, all of my problems, either I created it, I've been contributing to it, or at the very least, I've been tolerating it. So that's the second habit. So for each one of these saboteurs, I also give the participants of my workshops a habit, and I tell them how they can practice it and get really good at it. So create a transformative vision, accept responsibility. It's up to me.
Yeah.
And just those two go
Huge.
a long
A
way,
long
right?
way.
A long
It's
way. But then we have 5 other ones that then guide you through exactly how to practice this. I'll just give you like one more of these. How are you showing up? Let's just say you have a transformative vision and you've accepted responsibility, but you are influenced by your environment that you're basically showing up as a weakened and reduced version of yourself in the face of problems. You know, a good example of that is you go to work on Monday morning and somebody says, oh, how you doing? It's Monday, right? Just because it's Monday morning, I'm already deflated. Versus if I ask you how's it going on Friday, you say, oh, it's Friday. I'm excited. So the saboteur is that we don't pay attention to how we're showing up. We have that transformative leader inside of us, but we don't show up that way. And all it takes is to really generate yourself and intentionally say, look, you know what, if I'm going into a meeting that requires a certain amount of creativity and innovation and that sort of thing, I'm going to generate myself as a creator, innovator, innovative.
I love it.
If I'm going into a meeting that requires a certain level of
What
understanding
hats
and
are you wearing?
empathy,
Yeah.
that's right. I am going to show up as a person with a great deal of empathy. So generate yourself as the person you need to be. This is not about faking it. It's not about being somebody else, but being intentional about what you're bringing into the space. So again, we have 7 of these saboteurs. And what's amazing is everywhere I've done this around the world, different industries, different levels of the organization, people walk out of this not just energized for the moment, but like for months and months later, I get messages from them like, wow, that made such a difference for me. And this is how my behavior changed. And this is how my results have shifted. So just this one thing to work on ourselves goes a long way.
What I'm loving of these 3 that you've said so far is I can really see that link of system thinking of one thing impacting everything around it. Because if you
Yes.
as the leader are focusing on if you're only focusing on the crisis, you or the change you want to have, you're not actually noticing what is the bigger picture and the bigger ripple effect that you want to bring. So that whole vision, I totally get it from a NLP point of view. It's you want to actually focus on the ideal world, not the bad world, because we're so programmed to be negative already that if that's what we're going to focus on, what we don't want, that's actually what we'll get. So you're
Yes.
actually priming the people to actually find the success, to
Right.
create that positive environment and look inward and take responsibility. And also, I love what you said, the third one, like choosing, I don't know what the words were that you used, but it's choosing your state and showing up.
Yeah.
So deciding as a leader, I need to actually show up for my people, be creative, be positive, leave my nonsense outside of the room and listen and be
Yes.
present. And maybe that means that you have to see a counselor or a coach or someone else to deal with your personal issues so that you can show up. Because I'm sure you've seen that if people don't get help and they are in these leadership positions, they can actually cause a lot of damage if they're not actually self aware and building their resilience and also getting a place to debrief. Because as top management, people sit with a lot of stress on them. So they need that confidant or coach to work with. I just have another question. You also speak about a high commitment culture. What does that mean? I think you have 34 characteristics or something in your book about.
That's right. I was leading a high performance organization kind of transformation for a major company. And essentially, everybody kept asking me, so what is this high performance organization? It's an organization that performs very highly or whatever, delivers the results. But what I discovered, what I was thinking, I was sitting in a hotel room one night. I used to do a great deal of traveling between all these different companies, the different places I was supporting. I was thinking to myself, everybody who wants to be a high performance organization, but the key is in wanting to become a high performance organization. I want to be Mr. Universe, but I don't want to become it because if I want to become it, I have to go to the gym 7 days a week or whatever. So everybody wants to be, but they don't want to become.
Oh,
So then I sat down literally, and just one night I was watching TV and I thought, let me just explain what a high performance organization is like. And then it came to me that really it's about having a culture where a lot of people, if not all people, are committed, are 100% committed to creating an amazing culture that produces those results. So then I sat down and wrote a whole bunch of distinctions for the different ones. I'll give you a couple of those if you're interested.
go for it. Go for it.
Yeah. So, like the first one is that in a traditional or a default culture, there's a rule for everything. And it's easy to manage with rules. But in a high commitment culture, it's not about managing by rules. Yes, you have a few rules when it comes to safety, quality, I don't know, regulations and things like that. But you essentially lead by principle. And so you establish a set of principles, you empower people to really lead by those principles. Not necessarily, if this happens, you do this. If this happens, you do that. No, anybody can do that. It's easy, but it's not effective. Another one is that the conservative goals are set based on past limitations. Okay, we're going to set goals. We're going to basically under promise and over deliver and that sort of thing. And if you are actually a company that is making a promise to the Wall Street or something like that, sure, you don't want to say, oh, we're going to make 50% profit and then deliver 20. But when it comes to internal goals that we set for ourselves, a lot of times people are very conservative in their goal setting. And that is because of the limitations they've had in the past, as opposed to the high commitment culture where stretch goals are inspired by future possibilities. What would it be like if we had this?
Exactly.
And what does it really take to go make that happen? So I literally sat down and wrote 34 of these. I'll just share one more with you. And in a default culture, default cultures are compliance based. essentially, whereas high commitment cultures are commitment based.
Mm.
So in a compliant based or culture, bosses are making sure that people give them the minimum that they are supposed to give them. And the people are like, okay, I'm going to do my 8, hit the gate, whatever else. It's about getting compliance. But in a commitment focused culture, it's not about, I'm going to make you do what you're getting paid for, because there's so much more that the person can bring. So it's about, I'm going to support you. I'm going to really do the best that I can to create an environment in which you can bring your best. And that's exactly what happened in that organization. We turned around from the worst to the best, because the people who were just walking around, having been conditioned to do what they were told and not get in trouble, all of a sudden found out that, oh, geez, if I have an idea, I can bring it up. For a while, I had a roll around desk in the plant because there was a communication barrier between leaders and everybody else. As a plant manager, I had this roll around desk. I would roll it around to different parts of the plant, and I would sit down on my stool, and I had a license plate that said, interrupt me, right?
I love that.
After a few days, when people were like, okay, what is this guy doing? Is he like spying on us and all of that? They figured he's here to stay. So they'd come up to me and they'd talk to me, and I would coach them on certain things. Or if I was uniquely qualified to eliminate a barrier, I would take it and then I would come back to them. So that is the kind of thing that creates a commitment-based kind of culture. Anyway, there are like 31 more, but
I love that. Where can people buy this book of yours?
So the book is available on our website, the Ghannad Group.
I will put that in the
.com.
show notes as well.
Yeah,
Yes.
and it's also the audiobook and ebook are available as well on Amazon.
Did you record the audiobook or?
I did, yes. It was quite the task that I completed in our little home studio, but yeah, I recorded it. I had considered getting somebody else to do it, but I had so many people who said to me, they're like, look, when I read your book, I feel like the ones who had seen me speak, they're like, I feel like you're talking to me in your voice. And if you ever do an audiobook, please do it yourself, because I don't want to hear somebody else. So I did that. Yeah.
That's really good feedback to get. And being a speaker, using your voice is one of the best ways to connect with people. So I'm so glad that you did that. Just the last two questions that I have for you. I know that you use tools like DISC and the 5 behaviors. Where are these assessments beneficial in the work that you do?
Yeah, so I don't use a whole lot of off-the-shelf material. Most of the stuff that I do, I've developed myself, but very few things I do use, like DISC and 5 behaviors from Wiley. And I'm an authorized partner with them, so I do it with my own clients as well as others who want to use these. They come to me and we do it. So what I find is DISC is not, there are so many different assessments as Myers-Briggs and the birds and the
It's
animals.
like a personality types, yes,
and colors and all this. But this I have found to be very practical in terms of getting to know your own tendencies. He who's good with the hammer sees everything as a nail. And so when it comes to really understanding what is your default mode and when is it appropriate for you to take on a different style just for a brief moment to get through that challenge or whatnot. So it's good to, it goes along with this self-awareness piece. What are my default modes that are really holding me back from time to time? And it's also good to acknowledge and recognize, I have these 2 questions that if you ask yourself about somebody, even if they have not taken the DISC assessment, you can very quickly determine with a high degree of accuracy about which quadrant they're in. And so that you can tailor your communication to how they want to receive the communication. So in that sense, it's very effective. So I've used this DISC extensively, but also for the last several years, I've used 5 behaviors, and that
I don't know that one. Yeah.
Yeah, basically 5 behaviors is a tool that is an assessment that has been developed by Wiley in the partnership with Patrick Lencioni, where you essentially take a 20-minute assessment. So if you have a team, everybody takes an assessment, And then you get a very comprehensive report on where you stand on the 5 behaviors of trust. Is there trust
Oh, the five
to?
dysfunctions of a team, all of
That's right.
those.
That's right. The 5
Okay.
dysfunctions. Is there
Love
trust?
it.
And are people handling conflict effectively? And is there accountability?
Commitment, accountability,
Commitment and
results.
accountability and results. Yeah. So essentially, you get a very comprehensive report for the team that says this is how you evaluated yourself. These are the ideas that these are for getting better and that sort of thing. And then what we do is we do a progress check like 6 months later, where the team takes the same assessment and they can see side by side if they got better or worse. And this has been an absolutely great tool that helps us generate the right conversations. And where I found helpful is that it's a really good way. Like I work with a lot of left brain people, if you will. We're very technical and so on and so forth. And this tool takes a right-brained idea and translates it into something that could be measured very effectively and that sort of thing. I'm
It's
a big,
amazing. I'm a
yeah,
very big Patrick Lencioni fan and Five
yeah,
Dysfunctions of a Team. So really good to know that
yeah,
you are accredited in this. Yeah, I
that's
think
right.
we had so much fun today. We spoke about
Thank you.
gamification of culture, having a high commitment culture, being a transformative leader. And I think what I really love with your style, Amir, is that you go quite deep with the clients, but not only in the leadership capability, but also even in the systems and processes. So it's almost like the marriage of the two to ensure that people actually enjoy working in that environment and that the systems and processes are in place for leaders to lead and to make people feel that they enjoy working in a company and that they, I think the one thing that you said is taking responsibility yourself and actually sometimes realizing that the mistake lies with you or that you've allowed the mistake for so long. And that's really also a lack of clarity or accountability that leaders often have to develop to be like, I need to have that tough conversation and address that behavior
Yes.
because it's been going on for so long, something needs to change. And if we're not going to do anything, this is just the way it will be. If we had to give leaders any tips or advice on something that they wanted to do differently this week to improve their team culture, is there one thing that you would encourage them to do?
Yeah, I would say that it really has to start with a transformative vision. Get your head outside of just above all the things that you're dealing with right now and just say, what is that outcome and the experiences that I want to create? You've got to be clear on that vision. And then the other thing that I would say is, I think most leaders are always looking for these fancy solutions and big systems and big things and all that. And they forget that it is their day-to-day behavior, connecting with people, getting them engaged and involved, and helping them understand that, look, I don't have all the answers, but I really want your ideas and your opinion, listening, and that sort of thing. So for me, if I had to just narrow it down to 2 things, is get clear on what that vision is. Not that you have to do it all by yourself, but begin to socialize it with people and get people excited in the organization about that vision. And then truly connect with people. And even if you have 100,000 people and you say, how can I connect with all of them? You don't have to. All you have to do is begin that ripple effect of connecting with the immediate people and then expecting them to role model the same thing. And it's amazing how quickly the culture shifts from one of everybody protecting their turf to them feeling safe about talking about issues and encouraging each other and inviting each other into creating solutions and that sort of thing. So create the vision and connect with the people.
I love
This
it.
is the oversimplification perhaps, but that goes a long way. And there's a whole lot of other things. We've developed this 5-dimension model that we work with our clients on: personal transformation, teamwork, and then creating a sustainable game plan and that sort of thing. But so there's a lot to it, but you got to start somewhere, and that's where you ought to start, I would say.
and know the ripple effect, because if you are willing to lower your walls and be vulnerable with your people and have that vulnerability based trust, then they'll be able to also openly speak to you. So mirror and model the behavior that you want other
Absolutely.
people to have. It was such a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining me
Thank
here in
you.
South Africa online today, all the way from Portugal, Amir. Thank you
Thank
for
you so
flying in
much.
over Zoom for us.
Pleasure was mine.